At the center of the universe, at the border between the light and the dark, stands Castle Grayskull. For countless ages, the heroes of Grayskull have defended the universe against the forces of evil. Walk through the Hall of Living Pictures and learn the history and mystery of the Masters of the Universe. Dive deep into the mythology of Eternia, Etheria, and more. For those who know the stories of Grayskull will come the power to be supreme, the power to be all-knowing, the power to be Legends of Grayskull.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 45 of Legends of Grayskull, the fan podcast where we discuss the history, the mystery, the magic and mythology of He-Man, She-Ra, Eternia, Etheria, Nordor, Primus, New Adventures, Old Adventures, Ladybird, mini comics, anything and everything you can think of with that He-Man, She-Ra, Master of the Universe, Princess of Power, that Mattel logo down there in the corner. I'm Matthew Duch. I'm here with Sean Scavarna. Sean, how are we doing tonight?
I'm looking at boxes.
Boxes.
I'm doing okay otherwise. This is it's weird. We haven't recorded for a little while. So here we are again. And we are back without the special guest. We are just going to have a special tonight instead.
Yes, it is me and Sean and maybe some castles. We'll see how the night goes. But yes, it has been a minute.
It's been a minute, yes.
So, and I'm glad to be back. It's been a long few weeks here. Couple weeks? I don't know. It's been a long time. There's been lots of stuff personally and at work and everything else, and it's going to be good to talk some Masters. So, real quick before we get into the topic at hand, anything you need to catch up with over the past couple weeks?
Well, let's see. We got the stuff that we're going to talk about, so I'm not going to go there. But I guess the newest thing that's happened in the last few days is people are starting to get their classic Snake Mountain from Super 7 finally. And that's been the biggest Masters news of the week, I think, for a lot of people.
Literally the biggest. Have you seen the size of those boxes?
Yeah, that was no pun intended, but yes, literally the biggest.
Literally, those are shipping crates. That is an IKEA entertainment center that is delivering in some of these. I saw one guy that had two of them on his front porch, and it was like, there's the whole porch.
You could barely get out the door, basically, to pull them in. So, yeah, that's like Christmas came early for everybody who've been waiting for what? It's been close to 2 years, almost 2 years now? Or is it less than that now?
I think it's been
earlier this year, was it?
It was what, last 2019 Comic-Con is where they finally put the last announcement and opened pre-orders up, right? So you're looking.
Well, there you go. So okay.
Look, I could be wrong on this, but I'm thinking you're looking at about 18 months.
Well, there you go. Close to 18 months. But I know. Let's see. I've seen photos. I know. Give a shout out here, adultcollector.org. David Clark, he did post some photos from a fan who was opening theirs, and got to see some details. Got to check out all of the tooling work, all of the sculpting work that they put into that. Even the breakthrough wall that I know. Nate Barch said his son was adamant they had to have He-Man bust through a wall because that's what He-Man does.
And I was worried. So I was worried that had been cut because they had stopped showing that with all those final versions that were coming into Super 7. So it was it was a neat relief to see that made it through because that was a really neat concept.
Yeah, I like that too. The only thing would have been if the classics had the good old. The waist articulation with the spring and just pull them back and punch through. That would be pretty freaking cool. But We got it. We got the figures. We can have imagination and just do it that way. But I am one of the people who did not order and not get one. So I'm just going to have to rely on photos and hear people's tales of Snake Mountain at this point.
And
so.
they said they're shipping now, but it will be like February before they complete shipping. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
Are you getting one, or were you not in the availability as well, like me?
I do have one pre-ordered. I don't know if I
Aha.
will keep it or not. We'll see. But yes, I do have one that will eventually be on the way to me. But mine was
Very
pre-ordered
nice.
through one of the second-party sites, so I assume it'll probably even be past February before mine shows up. 'Cause it's got to show up there first. And I haven't heard any. I think the last update they sent out was like February or March. They were projecting. So
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm in it for a while, but yeah, that looked awesome. It was really neat to see that getting into the hands of collectors. And
So, did you have it when you were a kid?
yes, yep,
You did. Okay.
I had Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain, and the Fright Zone. So
Nice, boy. I only had a Snake. Or I didn't have Snake Mountain. I had Castle Grayskull in the Fright Zone. So for me, like I have one back here that was found in my mother's or my grandmother's basement. I'm like, I'm keeping that.
Wait, hang on. You always said that you got that from your grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was yours from your grandma's house.
Basically, what I found out when I was a kid is my grandmother. Okay, my grandmother was a collector.
Mm-hmm.
She collected Barbie and dolls and all sorts of different dolls along those lines. And she would go to yard sales and just pick up stuff randomly. So out of nowhere, I go to her house. And, we come in on the weekends sometimes. We go into her house, and there'd be a Snake Mountain sitting there. And as a kid, I was like, "Why can't I take this home?" It was like, "I have Grayskull. How come I can't take Snake Mountain?" And she's like, "Well, I bought that." And I'm like, "You don't care about He-Man. Like, you don't watch it. You don't know." And she was like, "No, I bought it. I'm gonna keep it with me." And I'm like, I'm not transporting my Castle Grayskull to your house just so I could play. Like it was one of those points of contention for me as a kid.
All right.
My grandmother passed away about over 10 years ago, 15 years ago or so now, and my grandfather passed away probably over a year ago. And my mother was going through their house, and she found 3 Snake Mountains and 1 complete Castle Grayskull, which is right here.
So that's not your childhood Grayskull either.
My childhood Grayskull is on my shelf up there. It is just a shell. And because I played with that thing, the parts went everywhere. I don't know where half of it is.
Sure.
So I just have the exterior there with my classics with my battle scene up on the top. This one is the most complete Snake Mountain out of the 3 that my mom gave me. And she's like, basically, anything He-Man I'm to give you, I go, yes. And I finally got them. And I never had it as a kid, though.
So you didn't have a Snake Mountain, but your grandma had 3 Snake Mountains.
3. Point of contention. When I meet her again up at the pearly gates, we are going to have words. I'll tell you, Grandma.
Did she at least let you play with them when you were over there?
No, she did.
Okay.
I actually had a blast doing the voice changer on that thing.
Oh yeah.
Like that was the best part about it. And I had my He-Mans with me. I'd be like, "You cannot come into Snake Mountain," or whatever I said. And I'd be sitting there having a blast with that part. So.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, well, mine was part of. I don't know if I talked about it on the show before or not, but a huge chunk of my He-Man collection was that my mom had a friend and she had some boys. One of the boys was about my age and we'd play together, but it was actually her older sons were into the He-Man stuff, and so when they grew, they were older than us. So when I was had been about 6 years old, 8 years old, somewhere in that time span. Her boys were done with it, and her younger son didn't want anything to do with it. So she gave all the stuff to my mom to give to me. So that
Nice.
came with a Snake Mountain, a Fright Zone, a ton of figures and
Oh
vehicles and
man.
everything. Um, so that's where I got there. Castle Grayskull, I got, as a kid, I got it for one of my birthdays. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the other two they came used, but they
Mm-hmm.
were it was awesome. It was absolutely
Nice.
awesome. So,
Nice.
um,
Yeah. So the thing about like when the pre-order was going on and everybody was going crazy, my initial reaction, and we were talking about this just a little while ago,
yeah,
so catch everybody up who wasn't on the recording part of it. Um, long story short, um, yeah, I didn't have Snake Mountain, so it was never something that when they said they were making it, I looked at it and I'm like, that's amazing, but I'm like, I didn't have the owning to it when I was a kid, so it's like, yes, it's Skeletor's base, yes, it's a part of the mythology, but I'm like, okay, like I don't know why I just didn't register that the same way as other fans because, like I said, it wasn't in my collection as a child, so I just never got into it. But
yeah.
Grayskull,
I
that's the key. So,
I get what you're saying as far as even having had it. Um, there was hesitation when it was announced for pre-order for me because honestly, it's not my preferred version of Snake Mountain. It's closer. Super Seven definitely is. Um, but now if they had announced a Snake Mountain playset that was the green single mountain spire with the snake coiled all the way around the mountain, if that had been announced as a playset, I would have been day one. Shut up and take my money. You know,
mm-hmm,
because to me, that Filmation Snake Mountain is the definitive Snake Mountain. You know,
sure.
I even liked in 2000X where they kind of brought some of that purple color scheme back, but still
Mm-hmm,
kept it. I think it's a big thing for me. Is and I like it. Don't get me wrong, fans. I like it, but the demon pass side of it, um, and then with the gate and everything, it's like it's a neat design, but to me that's not Snake Mountain, um,
mm-hmm.
and the reason I did end up finally biting the bullet on it is like number one, we're not going to get anything this scale ever again, like ever. Mark my even
Mm-hmm.
even if Masterverse takes off because that's a 6-inch scale too, they will not do a Snake Mountain like this. They will not do a Grayskull like Classics did. I guarantee you, it's not going to happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so number one, that's the only time, and number two, Super Seven did take great pains to make that snake side more Snake Mountainy than what's lurking by Sean's ear there. So and that was probably the biggest disappointment of Snake Mountain for me as a kid was that tiny little snake that made it Snake Mountain.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, honestly, I'd say everything that I've seen about the way they're handling the interior of it
Mhm.
is 100 times better than
Yes.
what we had as kids. Because as kids, the whole thing was just here's the exterior, play with that. The interior means absolutely
No.
nothing other than here's the net,
Right. It's got the
and
trap
it's
and
like
the
that's
microphone
about it.
stickers.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
microphone and it's like I know that was actually it was used in another idea and they
Right.
took it and used it for Snake Mountain for what Mattel was doing. But that's the weird thing about like the history of this line. It's like you have certain things that are definitive to people
Right.
because of how they're presented it originally, and then Mattel goes, "We're going to give you this though," and it just it's like, okay, I guess that's my Snake Mountain, but
Right.
um, you work with what you got, I
Yeah. It
guess.
was it was supposed to be a jungle play set, and there was supposed to be like a waterfall coming off of where the gate is
Hmm.
on the finished piece. Yeah. Which explains the tiny snake because it was just supposed to be a snake in the jungle attacking. You know.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. We could do a whole episode on play sets. And I think we're gonna today, because today we are talking about we're just talking about Grayskull, because over the last week or so we've had the different. Well, we started off with the leaks of the Castle Grayskull for Origins, and now they've officially revealed it. And Sean and I were both like, let's just talk about some Grayskull. So, where you want to start? You want to start with Origins Grayskull, probably, and just kind of dive into that a minute, and then.
Yeah, let's just go there, I
Okay.
guess, first, because that's the big news, other than Snake Mountain, which is kind of ironic that both of them are in the news lately.
Let's stir up some pictures here.
Yeah, let's go for it. There we go.
Alright. So yeah, so you got the castle, which we saw the interior. I think that was the last thing we covered on the show, was the interior.
Yeah, no exterior shots until recently.
So we got the exterior here. We got a nice shot of the Temple of Darkness Sorceress. It comes with a weapons rack, the combat trainer, the laser cannon, ladder, the flag, and a second weapon rack. Because we needed another one shaped like an eagle.
Well, when you have a weapons rack, that's hard to say right off the cuff, like I'm trying to. But when you have that and it's smaller than the original one, I guess you have to augment by giving a second one. And this is the eagle one to have something else. Like, I'm guessing those are for that one's probably more like, okay, the sword of power and the sword of protection go in there. And that makes it like a special place for the sorceress to hold those and give them to Adam and Adora or whatever. But I mean, the weapons rack is definitely what I'd say a third smaller than it used to be. So maybe a little less than that, but it feels
looking
miniature.
At the sorceress here, it doesn't look. It's got less pegs on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the key. I think it's got less. Hang on. Oh. Let me shift back to us for a second. All right. See, because the original is much like this classics one here, and it's got a ton of pegs on it. And I think that's the big key there, is that the new one does not have that many pegs. It's got less spots on it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes it look smaller, because if you look at the sorceress, it's actually pretty much the height that I remember, at least vintage size. But everything just looks kind of squat here. Like the weapons rack, the laser gun looks like it sits like by their knees.
Yeah.
And then the trainer, it just looks really uninspired.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I should get into all of it now, but there is an element, and I say it to whoever wants to listen, which, it is what it is.
Yeah.
The line itself has this feeling of they're doing the best they can to give the nostalgia angle to stuff, but we're getting the version of this that has less heart and creativity than what we had when we were kids. And there is a part of me where I'm like, okay, I understand that there are people out there who they grew up with it in the 80s and they probably didn't realize 2000X happened. They probably didn't know New Adventures hit, or if they did, it turned them off so bad that they didn't even want to deal with 2000X. Right. And then with classics and everything else, and it's like you had to be a hardcore person to know about classics, for instance, because that was online. And, it's like that still had that feeling of the creativity, the imagination, and that like, here are sculptors and engineers doing something where it feels like this is how it should be, the marriage of all that to create these figures and create something that wows you every time you hold it. And the Origins line for me just kind of has this, Mattel is attempting to bring stuff back, but I never feel like it's grabbing me the way that I wish it would. Like, I feel like I'm that kid that I get to look in at the family having Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm looking at them enjoying the hell out of Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm looking at it going, it doesn't look as tasty as it should. You know, like I'm that kid. And the Grayskull set for me, what should be the crown jewel of this set, it to me is like, this is the sum of every part's origins that I'm not impressed with.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I stand on it. And I'm sure there's going to be people that go, okay, Sean is not a fan or a true fan or whatever. And I'm just going to be like, you can like your stuff and I'll just like mine. You know, I mean, that's the way I'm dealing with it.
It's, you know, honestly, even, and we'll get more into it in a minute here, but even the 2000X Castle, I was very much impressed by it. Like, it was very different and everything, but at least it looked like they were putting some sort of effort into it. They were updating things, whatever. Here, it's just like you said, it's like they tried to duplicate the vintage, but it's so off at the same time. The eyes are too big. The drawbridge doesn't fit squarely in. I mean, I can see. I pulled up this battle scene here. You can see the light coming through. Like the drawbridge doesn't even fit in the opening properly. You know. And here again, it's like, okay, they got Zodak fighting on the side of the evil warriors. It's like, why are we not? Like, we're past the point where we have to go, yeah, Zodak was originally an evil warrior or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what they originally were. He never really was. So why are we still perpetuating, you know, these mistakes decades later? Like, this is our chance to fix these mistakes and you know what I mean? Like, they're not taking advantage of this like they should. Everything on this castle looks too wide and just too play school almost. Like it's meant to be a toddler's toy. Like, that's what I get looking at this.
I'm right there with you. I feel like this shot you pulled up here, it's I guess this is some of the official Mattel images to sell the product, and that doesn't look too bad. But what I have said, and I still stand by this, and when you watch the documentaries that are out there now, the Toys That Made Us, Power of Grayskull, and all that stuff that is out there, when they talk to Mark Taylor, he always says that when they were doing the tooling for Grayskull, he kept seeing the designers doing it where it was so like architecturally sound.
Right.
They were making it, there's you know, straight lines and everything had a symmetry to it and stuff. And he took over and said it can't do that, and he would create this organic structure out of it. And that's part of the appeal of that play set, is it does not look like anything earthly, and it doesn't look like it looks like something that Frank Frazetta would have painted in the background of a Conan piece he did, and it would make you, if you were looking at that piece, go, that's awesome, you know. And then it was like transplanted into Masters, and we got to have it as, this is the heart and soul of Masters. I mean, by the power of Grayskull, it's right there. It's like, that is the main core set, you know. And this set to me this is how we would have gotten it as kids if Mark Taylor didn't take away the tools from the engineers and the designers and do it himself. That's my take on this. It's like, that's kind of the thing with Origins for me in general, is there is this feeling of, it's very corporate, and it's very much like Mattel knows there is a bankable product to be had that they have not had an interest in doing much with, other than the classics line, which is like, it's like the Grateful Dead. Only the major hardcore fans were all about that line, and the people who weren't involved in the communities and online and stuff, they're like, wait, they made this other line, and now, like what we talked about, now we're seeing those prices going crazy, even for figures like Battleground Teela, Lord Dactyls. Now you're paying $50 a pop for those, whereas earlier this year, $20-$30 a pop maybe. But that's my biggest frustration in general, and it's very much like Grayskull to me is solidifying this line. It's great that it's out there to put Masters back out there, but it doesn't work in the way that I want my Masters to be represented anymore.
Exactly.
So,
well, and just looking at this here, I pulled up the looks like more of an official advertisement for those of you following along in our audio. It's the Castle Grayskull image where it's got everybody labeled: Skeletor, He-Man, Battlecat, Sorceress, blah blah blah. Look at the paint job on that compared to the paint job on what we're actually getting.
yeah.
As I flip back and forth here between the two. Okay, now if you need to change up that image that much to promote this, that means you already know that you've got something wrong here in your production piece. For those of you that aren't watching, I'm flipping back and forth here between the two pictures just so you can see how drastically different. But with Koi, that's actually coming out as a very lazy shades of greenish blue paint, and the one that they're using to promote it is it's got nice was it like a black wash, nice shade shadows. The eyes look really good there actually, so I'm wondering how much of that is just the paint job.
It's got earth tones to it more than it looks earthy. It looks like this is something that would have come out of the ground and just exist over the other version, which I now think is the Fisher Price version, like you were saying, or the Play School version. It very much has this. Here's a representation of it. Make your mind create how cool this is supposed to be. But this version, the other one that you're showing, that's at least a step or two closer to what I'd rather have it look like.
Right.
If I was actually going to buy it, that is.
And that's the thing. That's the same sculpt right there, but just the paint job on it just takes it to a whole nother level. It gets that atmosphere that you're seeing in the actual, box art and everything else, which is the best part of this line.
Yeah, and when you look at that box art, you can see that Nate Barch and Axel Jimenez were really going legit. This is vintage Grayskull. Right. They really made that look that way. So, if you got that box and you didn't see any of the other photos up until that point, and you're like, that's how it's supposed to look, and then you pull out the actual play set, if it was me, I'd be like, did I order this off Wish? Like this, it's like that whole commercial that I've always seen. Okay, what you imagine on Wish and then what you get, and that's kind of how it feels. It's almost, I don't want to say it's bait and switch because you're getting a Grayskull, but there is this like, did anybody know that it's supposed to look like on the box? Like, there's that kind of a feeling when I look at it.
Yeah, this box art is awesome too. They gave He-Man his battle axe for you. They used mini comic Stratos, the pale skin, less feathers. They got those cool glowing skeleton warriors.
Yeah, and actually I will say that the skeleton warriors are probably, if they go there, I will collect the hell out of those because that'd be awesome to have a skeleton army behind my classics Skeletor on my shelf. So that because all of their box art to this point has always led to, there's hints of here's the next figures you might see one way or the other. So it's either that or I'm guessing, and this is going to piss me off if they do this, but if we get Snake Mountain out of it, they'll have a couple in there, and then it's going to be like the Skelecons with the Roton, and I'll be like, oh, you're killing me. Like,
oh, God.
I have a couple of those by luck, but I'm not paying $100 a figure for one of those either right now.
Absolutely. No, I hope it wouldn't come to that.
Yeah.
So that's our look at the Origins Castle Grayskull. Let's do one more here. I got something special here for all you viewers at home. Sean will have something to say about this.
Oh, I always.
I have the power! because it's bad. That gets you pumped up.
Like classics. That's why I love classics, you know. And in the case of this, I am very much in like, so it's gonna now show me how to play with them too. And now it's gonna, you know, it's gonna. It's like I know it's supposed to be meant to. This is how it felt to be a kid doing it, but there's that element of like, I remember that. That was special to me. You don't need to do that to me in a commercial right now. And I feel kind of like you're pushing it too far. Just represent what we're getting, and I'm happy with that much at least. Don't do the hopping He-Man stuff and all that. And make me go, I remember that.
I get what they were going for with like the kids playing with the figures and like, but then put the hands in there. Like they went stop motion, but then they still had everybody doing that hopping thing. And then Skeletor just walks around the backside of the castle to get in. It's
That's
like,
lame. That's
oh my
lame.
God! Every time, like, you can't do that. There's obviously a back wall there. Come on, use your. You want to show kids how to use their imagination to play with this stuff, and then you can't even use your imagination properly.
Exactly, and that's why it's like that's another example of it's the corporate thing that's driving me nuts about this line, because when we were kids, and I know I'm older than you, so you know the white beard proves it and all that stuff. When I was a kid, and the first He-Man commercials came on, you had that timpani drum, and you know He-Man, and you'd have the kids there. Right. And they're making voices for the figures, and I mean, they didn't even hop them; they were pushing them along, and all that kind of stuff. When they would use them in the skit or in the commercial, and it was like you watch those kids having a blast with those figures, and for me as a kid, that was enough for me to go, I want to play too. Right. You know, and that is part of what hooked me into the line after the fact that I got a figure and I loved it, and it's like here's Skeletor, here's Beastman, here's Castle Grayskull, and all this stuff, and you know, seeing the dad playing with the kids even and all that stuff, and he was Skeletor, and it's like that is how you do it, and that still is effective. Like I know there are people out there who are like to this day they'll still watch those old commercials and they'll just be like a kid again because it does something innately to you to see those kids playing with that, and you are then through their eyes remembering I did that too, or oh I did it but I did it like this or something, you know, and that is what made this line special in that way versus here's this PowerPoint presentation or something, the way it feels.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what it was. And the other thing that it gave us the opportunity to see is, and this was the first time I noticed it, I can see it now looking back at the pictures after I saw that video, but the Origins Castle Grayskull has all these white specks in the paint job. And it's like, at first I thought it was just something weird with that, because that presentation does look like computer animated, so I'm like, okay, maybe it's just something weird on that. But now when I go back and look at the actual photos, I can see the white specks now. And it's like, why? Like, what version has ever had white like, they look like they're supposed to be like twinkling stars or something. Like, I don't... It's awkward. It's weird. It's just one of those things that's got you scratching your head going, why?
Yeah, and you know, for me, again, I'm that guy. I'm probably, I'm waiting to get hate mail. I have yet to hear it from anybody whether or not I'm pissing them off doing these episodes. But no, there is this feeling to it of like this disconnect of, it feels like, they're coming up to you and going, you like nostalgia, kid? And it's like, 35 to 40-year-old men going, sure. And then they show you something and there's that like, well, I don't know if that doesn't remind me of, but it's almost like what you had,
Right.
it's like, but it's this. And there's this kind of, I don't know. It just, it doesn't feel as sincere as some other things, in my opinion. Like, but love it or hate it, 2000X, when that line came out, when you saw the redesigns, those felt sincere. Like, this is what we're trying to do. It's like we're taking what you loved and we're going to make it, like, from a detail perspective and a sculpt perspective. Let's do this. Let's knock it up a few notches, and let's do something that you've never seen Skeletor looking like this. And Skeletor looks like a nightmare now, and all this stuff. And it's like, this line to me, just, it doesn't have that kind of pull. It doesn't have that kind of heart and soul, like why we love this growing up as kids.
Exactly.
And I will say real quick too. I will say my son, my son, who I have the Skeletor, He-Man, and Battle Cat for, he doesn't even play with them.
No.
He's way more worried about Teen Titans, Ninja Turtles, Batman, the DC, and that's not even me forcing anything on him. That's just the stuff that he's gravitating towards. Ninja Turtles, all that stuff. I had him in the basement the other week. We were looking around and stuff, and he took out He-Man for a little bit and played with him. But then it's like, nope, back to Turtles again. And I'm like, he'd rather play with my classics.
Yeah.
And that's part of the weirdness. And there it is, my grail, and he's touching it like I want to touch Kate Beckinsale. That's horrible. The classics. Yeah,
the classics
the
Castle
Castle.
Grayskull. This, Mattel, is how you take something and make it like what you remembered you had, but kicking it up. This thing
Definitely
is massive. Look at my hand. I don't have small hands, but this thing is huge. You cannot. I didn't even realize how big this thing really was until I got it in hand. And it's just going here again. I know we're I sit so far away. My cord's barely reaching. I know we keep seeming like we go back to this, but it's like, how do you? Don't look at that. I got.
You have to say the words by the power of Grayskull.
This thing is just it's massive, it's amazing, it's got everything you wanted and more. My kids were playing in here, so everything's a mess. I got PJ Masks guys in here. Romeo
That's how it would be at my house too.
Romeo is taking over. But yeah, it's just how you can go from putting out stuff like this, which is everything you wanted as a kid, punched up to the next level,
Yeah.
And then to come out with Origins, and it's just like, it's baffling to me. And I'm gonna say it. One of the big things to me is, where are the Horsemen, Mattel? Where are the 4 Horsemen? They have done you guys right and made you a ton of money ever since 2000X. And you guys just aren't utilizing them at all anymore. And I can't think of any reason why. Because they could take your basic origin sculpts that you have and they could kick it up to the next level, because that's what they've done since 2000, And it's just a shame, this, and it begs the question, why didn't they take this shell and repurpose it? They've already got all the molds and everything, This would have looked amazing with Origins figures. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. These are the
Well,
things that just keep making me go like, what is your plan? What is your thoughts? What are you guys going for over there? You know?
and again, like I'm right there with you. I don't understand why we're backtracking so far when we've come so far.
Right.
Like from the vintage line to 2000X, skipping over New Adventure, but 2000X, which to me, like, yes, the articulation wasn't amazing in 2000X, but I still like those sculpts quite a lot. I still like the individuality of those figures at least. And then when you hit classics, it's like heaven, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, if they would have repurposed that, at least the shell of it,
That's what I'm saying.
$75, you got me. I would have bought two so I could customize one, and I would have had the other one just being like, here it is. I got a Grayskull shell that's very similar to classics.
Yeah. No, they absolutely should have. I mean, it does this classics Grayskull does what they're trying to do with Origins. They're trying to go, hey, look, remember this from your childhood? Well, having this
Mm-hmm.
in hand makes me remember my childhood. About the only thing I'll say I miss from the vintage Castle Grayskull, this is just the way I played with it, is I loved how the platforms came out. There was a lot, and easily came out. These I probably could get out, but I'm not going to. There was a lot of damage in my castle. There was a lot of hard fought battles in there, and those platforms would come out a lot. Like you just
Yeah.
so that was pretty cool. But yeah, this,
Mm-hmm.
this right here, this is my castle. This will always be my castle. I can't even see myself dabbling with an Origins castle. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing there that excites me. There's nothing there that wows me. And I got excited over 2000X Castle Grayskull, which many will say is the worst castle in the line. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it still made me excited. And this Origins one just doesn't do it.
Yeah. The thing about this is just in my opinion, but the thing is, each time that you do something new, try to do it where it's furthering it.
Right.
And that to me is a good case in point right now. GI Joe classified line right now is pissing off a lot of Joe collectors, but there's other Joe collectors who are embracing it because they're finally getting the 6-inch figures that they've wanted versus
Right.
nothing because they've had nothing for so long. And it's like that's furthering at least the brand in a direction, and that's doing something. At least it's pushing it into another realm that maybe it hasn't been able to do before. And the thing that I loved about classics is that it was the minute I got that first classics He-Man out of the package and I was holding him in my hand, the only thing that came to my head looking at it was, this is what I always thought I had when I was a kid.
Right.
My mind made me imagine this is my He-Man, in that way. And when I see the Grayskull with you sitting there with the Grayskull, it's like that is how it should be. It should be the next. It's like you always want every generation to do better than the
Right.
previous. So then it's like you look at this toy line and it's like this generation. It's like if you want it to succeed, you can't just make it be like nostalgia, but here's a couple of new articulation points, and that's what drives me crazy about it. It needs to be something where the kids are going to see it and get excited about it and not just be daddy likes them
Mm-hmm.
or mommy likes them or whatever, and have it be something that grabs the kids but then makes the kid and you still go, I remember these, they weren't that cool when I was a kid. And for some people
Right.
the articulation's doing it, and for me it's like I've seen all the different iterations to this point. This one is just like, okay, they're out. And to
Right.
be honest, when I see the photos right now of like the pegs and stuff, I'm not even that excited when I see all the pegs at Walmart filled with these figures because I'm like, what does this have for me
Right.
anymore? It doesn't. And as a fan, I feel like that's not cool. Like I should be able to at least have something of a dog in this race, and I don't right now.
Yeah, it should make you feel good to see it. It should make you happy. For me, a big part of Castle Grayskull is it's not just a castle. It's a setting. It's a character in itself. Like
Yeah.
um, well, here let's let the sorceress talk about it for a minute.
But Eternia is also a world of sorcery and magic. There are powerful forces at work throughout the land, but no place is as magical as the mysterious Castle Grayskull. Within these walls are mystical secrets and powers beyond imagination.
Now that see, and there was one of my earliest memories. That was the intro from Greatest Adventures of All, the VHS release. Um, and that's it. This castle is so much more than just a castle. It is organic. You know,
Hmm.
like you touched on it earlier too. It's organic. It's living beings. If you go by the Filmation Bible, it was these bones of these giant creatures that people built a fortress around. You know, there's so much life and energy and character to this thing. To just see it treated as just like, oh, here's a stone building. It's like you don't get it. And
Hmm.
that's the biggest thing about this whole line. It's like you guys just don't get it. You don't get the
Hmm.
characters. You don't get the heart of this. You're just looking at these toys and going, "Yeah, I can duplicate that. I can put one of those out." And yeah, you
Hmm.
you can. You absolutely can duplicate it. But you're missing the heart. And that's the
Hmm.
whole point. That's what's getting me down. It's not the fact that these are inferior. It's not the fact that they're not classic. It's the fact that they don't have the heart to them.
Hmm.
2000X, for all its faults, for every misstep it made, those characters were crafted with love. The Horsemen wanted to do those.
Hmm.
They, you know, Hornboy has said one of his dreams when he got into the toy industry was to someday work on a Masters of the Universe line because he remembered it from when he was a kid, you know.
Hmm.
And you can feel that. You can feel that they wanted to be there. They wanted to work on it. They understood the characters, and
Hmm.
it's just completely missing here between this and these mini comics they're including, and it's like they're right there, and that's the most frustrating part. They are on the goal line, and they can't get that ball into the end zone because they're just
Yeah.
missing
Yeah.
that one piece. They're missing that little bit of just that this isn't just a job to a lot of people who have worked on the lines over the years. You know,
Yeah.
like even back in the '80s, it wasn't just a job. These were guys who idolized Frank Frazetta, and they read the Conan stories, the Cthulhu stories, heavy metal. Like these guys were into all that stuff, and they had an opportunity to make their own line, paying homage to all these properties that came before, and this kind, all these
Yep.
different genres. And so these guys were stoked just to work on a line. We're like, you're letting me do it. You're letting me make a skull face castle. You're letting me make a
Yeah.
guy with an extended neck. You're letting me, like, anything I can think of, I can do. And
Yeah.
that's the creativity that's missing from this one.
Exactly. And to follow up with your four horsemen point, like you know, yeah, where are they? Because every time that they've touched this line from 2000X to classics, I feel like their direction and their creativity into it has always made you look at this in a new way,
Yes.
and it's made you appreciate what the foundations of this line was from the get-go. But like with 2000X, okay, here's Trapjaw and he looks like Frankenstein's monster, which is awesome.
Right.
That was one of my absolute favorite designs in 2000X for the toys, between him and probably Man at Arms.
Mm-hmm.
I've never liked Man at Arms until I got that 2000X figure. And like I said, Skeletor looked like a nightmare on legs. He
Yep.
really, like, if I would have seen that in the dark as a kid, I would have had nightmares, and I probably would have had to put him in the closet and hide him at the very back if I had that one as a kid, he looked legitimately like ghoulish versus here's the version I had when I was a kid and he looked a lot happier,
Right.
He looked a lot less menacing. And then when you get to classics and you're seeing the kind of sculpture they're doing, the details they're doing on top of that, and making all of these figures that when you were a kid you saw them, and here they are represented in a whole different way to enjoy them again. That's the magic. That's the stuff that, like, they are an essential ingredient in Masters
Yes.
at this point. And I'm scared for the Masters verse line if they're not involved in that in any way, shape, or form. They would not tell us when PowerCon was happening if the Four Horsemen were involved. And that really is making me nervous, because that's the line I'm the most like, please God, give me this, because Origins is not where I need to be. I want to be with these really cool articulated figures nowadays.
Now that's interesting. Do you think they wouldn't go in-house with Masterverse? You wouldn't think.
I would hope
And
not, but
based on that Mossman that may or may not be the actual Mossman, that does not look like something, no offense guys, that Mattel in-house could come up with.
mm-hmm. Well, I'm hoping that they're involved in that, and they were very secretive about that. They weren't answering any questions about it.
Yeah.
But if they don't have them in there, I'm like, well, who are they going to bring in to make this work? Because those figures, like, not only do we have classics, because obviously those were around for 10, 12 years now.
Right.
But another competing source for my dollar right now is actually the McFarlane DC Multiverse figures.
Absolutely.
I never got into the DC stuff until McFarlane started doing it, and the Azrael figure was my rabbit hole gateway figure. And now I'm like, I like these, I like this, I like this, and the sculpting on that for $20 is amazing. And this is part of why when I see Origins and I'm looking at McFarlane, it's like, well, as an adult, I want McFarlane, because they're doing some amazing sculpts, some really crazy figures that you're like, I wouldn't have expected this, but hey, that's great. And the Origins are just like, okay, I had the vintage ones as a kid. I have the classics ones on my shelf. I don't need to rebuy He-Man another time. I don't need to rebuy Skeletor another time right now, unless it's something along the lines of, let's do some crazy 7-inch crazy sculpts, detail. Let that stuff really pop for the collectors that want to still push forward instead of go back in that way. And, like the Horsemen are the ones who can pull that off. I mean, if you look at Mythic Legions, if you look at the Classics line again, you keep going to that. If you look at the 2000X line,
yeah,
I mean, they can knock that stuff out of the park in their sleep. And they should be an essential part of the ingredient to that line. So I'm getting more and more nervous going into next year, going, if I'm not hearing any news about somebody involved from that with the Four Horsemen, oh boy.
right. So you just reminded me of it. Good friend Jim Tallstar had posted when was that? 3 days ago. He was listening in on Mattel's Q3 earnings conference call, and there was a little bit comments about Masters of the Universe. So I'm going to read those here.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard this.
So this is, I think, from throughout the conference call, but these are just the Masters specific quotes. So it says CEO Yanan Krez. Yanan Krez. They say, we also successfully introduced the Masters of the Universe collector toy line, with more to come in anticipation of the franchise's relaunch next year.
Mm-hmm.
So they are viewing this as the relaunch is coming next year, and all of this is just kind of early publicity. Oh, here we go. Production on our 2 Masters of the Universe animated series is ongoing, and we look forward to releasing them on Netflix next year. The successful introduction of the product line this year, combined with these animated series, will lay the groundwork for the holistic relaunch of this iconic franchise. So yeah, so they're
Okay.
like I speculated, I think a few episodes ago, everything is riding on these animated series, and that's why they're being so hush hush about it.
Yeah.
And then the last one, excuse me, is a question and answer. Question. The second question is around e-commerce and specifically direct to consumer. You called out Masters of the Universe and collector's sets as a partial driver of sales this year. I was wondering if you could expand on that and just shed some light on the extent to which that forms, or is the broader e-commerce and direct-to-consumer strategy that you expect to roll out in the future? And the CEO answered, "It's too early to talk about that, to provide specific detail. But as I mentioned before, online retail and e-commerce is an important part of our strategy, and we will be able to share with you more down the road as we make further progress." So, whole lot of nothing again. But there's some little tidbits in there. So they're not ruling out online and direct to consumer stuff. That they still have plans for that in the future. What that'll be, well, I think an early indicator is the Master Universe minis. They released that first 4-pack that's in the Grayskull box. They released that's online only through Walmart. Direct to consumer is interesting. Maybe that might be something to do with Masterverse. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it shores up the fact that the way Mattel's looking at it is this thing really gets off the ground next year. And it's all tied into those animated series. There's no mention of a movie anymore. You know, before it was always, well, we're tying it up with the movie. So I think they completely switched gears and everything's riding on Revelation and the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hate to be the guy saying this, but I think that the best way to go with these, with Masters in particular, is animated.
Yes.
I mean, when you hear the people just going crazy about the casting, it just makes me go, I'm already tired of people naysaying or beating this thing to the ground just based on casting.
Right.
And you know, I'd rather see it as an animated form, because to me, it all starts with those the paintings, the Rudy Obrero paintings, and it's like that's an illustration thing versus here's like for lack of a better example, you know, here's Chris Evans as Captain America, so then it's Chris Evans as Captain America to me, and it's like, okay, from here on out, this Noah Centineo is He-Man to me or whatever. It's like, no, it all started with illustrations.
Right.
So I dig that. But yeah, it is weird to go like, okay, they were touting up all this stuff with the Origins line, and there was a point where I could have swore this was the year we were getting the animated stuff. Yeah. And I feel like there was this kind of, let's just make it next year once all the COVID stuff started coming to life and all that.
Which most places are doing. I mean, that's not even a Mattel thing. We've been harsh enough on them. Let's just say, I mean, I think the earliest new movie that's coming out now is Wonder Woman 84, and that's supposed to be December now. So, I mean, and I still expect that to get pushed back one more time firmly into 2021.
Sure.
You know, this will be the first year without a Marvel movie. You know, that's just kind of where it's at. But go on, sorry.
Yeah, it's that year basically. But it is really weird that the way they were talking leading into 2020, it felt like this was supposed to be that year. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, it's like now it's, okay, well, next year. So then it's like, is Origins canon fodder? Like, I have questions about why they did Origins, and then they're thinking, well, they're going to do other things with the brand. But it's like, well, then where does Origins line up in this then? Where does Origins fall after next year? Because you have people... That's kind of the hard part about it. It's almost... it's almost the cup game or something. I don't know if there's a better way to describe it than that, but it's got that you like classics. They put the classics under the thing, and all of a sudden you pop it up and there's Origins, and you're like, where the hell did that come from? And that's kind of how it feels as a collector right now for me. It's like you were doing great with classics, and granted, yes, online only. I get it. There's no store displays and there's none of that stuff going on. But, you know, it's like you're switching gears so weird that now we're going into the origin stuff. And it's like, well, then is that going to change and they're going to switch over to something else? And maybe Origins was just a gateway drug. So, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's...
It's hard to know what they're thinking.
It's impossible to know. And we speculated that for a long time. It's like, what do you do then? Do you release a He-Man and the Master of the Universe line once that cartoon comes out? I mean, Masterverse is going to handle the Revelation side of it, but are they going to switch? There's just so many unknowns right now. It's frustrating, and it's like, just tell us what you're going to do. You don't have to play everything so close to the vest. You know, you're not doing anything outside of what the other companies are doing. Like, you're not doing any more than Hasbro with G.I. Joe Classified and Transformers Red. You know, you're not doing anything like earth-shattering, change the game type. So why? It's like they're so worried about someone like stealing their idea when they're not doing anything out of the norm. They're staying very much in the lines, you know, and doing it, you know, and just going the course. So let us know what you're doing, you know.
Yeah, the best that they did was the PowerCon presentation. At least, like I said, Masterverse is where I'm going to be happiest, but I'm now very much like I'm 50-50 on it because depending what happens, and if the Horsemen aren't involved, I got to see something awesome.
Right.
So, but yeah, it really, it's like everything. I agree. I'm tired of it being so close to the chest, and I wonder if they're doing that because the brand is so latent with how they've handled it that they're worried, oh, you know, the fans aren't going to like this, or the new generation is going to find it silly or whatever. And it's like, to be honest, when you look at Netflix, they have a ton of stuff now that is of this variety.
Right.
There's a ton of shows out there that are very similar to this, and there's even like on Amazon, there's that Nico and the Sword of Light show. My son loves it.
Check that one out.
And it feels like this could be almost like a He-Man show, almost like a spin-off or something. And I mean, there is definitely that feeling out there again in pop culture with a lot of these stories. It's like, you don't have to be afraid of this anymore. It's like it's cyclical. It's coming around again, that these fantasy tales and the hero going and the hero's quest, the hero's journey, these things are still viable and they're out there. And then Netflix is putting The Witcher opened the door to a ton of people going, hey, this is cool. It's like, well, He-Man isn't too far removed from that concept, really. You know, I mean, it's a little different, but not too much.
I haven't watched anything lately. I need a quarantine. That's what I need. I need a quarantine to catch up on
you
all
and me
this
both.
Stuff. Like,
I need a quarantine from my quarantine, so I don't have to work and I can binge watch all I want right now.
I think you need the opposite. I think you need the kids to go back out into the world. I think that's.
No, that's what I mean. Like, I need them to go out.
They
I
go
can be
out,
quarantined by myself so I can enjoy this stuff.
Oh Lord, yeah.
No.
I think that's Castle Grayskull. So.
Uh
oh. Nope, we lost Sean. Oh, he's skinny, Sean.
What's up?
You all right over there?
Yeah, it just had the sound Skype ended. So I thought I had to hang up or something. Never mind.
No, you're still Skyping. So,
it's freezing up a bunch lately.
That's everything. Damn COVID. So what you think? You want to do a remastering? You want to save that for next time?
I think we probably save it for next time. It's getting late, and plus now that Skype's acting weird, It might be interesting.
We're going to save remastering for next time. We're going to get into a better groove here. Football's ended for me now, so time will get a little bit better. But we want to thank all of you guys for joining us today. Leave us a comment. Drop us a line. Let us know how you're doing. Paul Lins, drop me another comment. We had some good discussion the other day. Let's talk some more. Shawnee, what do you got?
No, that's pretty much it. My opinions have been firmly stated about Origins, and I'm sure there are people out there. I'm thinking of Steve and Jeremy in particular, where they're probably going, "You guys have no heart and soul, and we don't know why you're a fan." It's like, yeah. Beyond that, yeah. Let's see what 2021 has in store for the brand.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go from there.
Yep, exactly. And that's it, guys. I don't want you to think we're being too harsh on it. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you're loving Origins, I am so happy for you that there is a line at retail. Honestly, I'm loving the minis. I found a couple Walmarts. Not my Walmart, because that'd be too easy. But I found a couple Walmarts that are carrying them pretty regularly, so I'm having some fun hunting for them. I think I'm just missing the slime pit one now. I think that's the only guy I'm missing that I need. But so that those are a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to those. Um, and like I said, I'm glad for all of you guys that get to enjoy Origins at retail and everything, and that's great. That once again, this is just the views. These opinions and views are only ours, and that's why we're here.
Hello.
Just to complain for an hour or so, and then go on our merry way because it makes us feel better. So let me get this wrapped up here before we lose Sean completely here. All right. So everybody,
into Despondos.
everybody listening along at home here. Okay, go ahead. Click all those buttons down there before Sean freezes up again. Subscribe, ring that bell so you're notified when a new episode comes up or when we do one of our live spectaculars. Check out our back catalog. We got some good stuff there. I think we're gonna stick with the every couple of weeks here. So we got a little bit here. You got some time to catch up, and thanks for joining in. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know how you're liking the show, and until next time. I'm gonna say until next time for Sean because I think we have lost him again. Until next time.